Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Rae-Lynn, Danielle, and we are going to talk about taking back your power so you can connect with who you are. And if you have had a toxic person encounter at work, at home, as a child, you understand how important it is to take back that power. Rae-Lynn, why do you love this conversation around taking back your power?
Oh, when we call back in our power, it really amplifies the way we're able to show up in our life. And so there's so many situations like you just listed where we give away our power and we don't ever intentionally call it back in. So I have seen so many transformations within myself when I'm able to recognize where I'm letting myself be thin and then calling it back in and coming at every situation that enters into my life from a more whole and empowered perspective. And it just lights me up to see other, I work specifically with women, so other women stand in their power and their truth and create from that space rather than from a space of deeper darkness within themselves.
So, if you were describing a woman who had not reconnected with her power versus a woman who had reconnected with her power, give us a little yin and yang description of the two of those people.
So I always like to use myself as an example. It's a way to have others resonate. So when I was really disconnected from myself, I was looking externally for a lot of validation and gratification in my life and in who I was as a woman and how I was showing up. And that didn't just come in the sense of likes on social media or anything like that. It would be comments made from other people, the where my money was coming from, who I was interacting with throughout the day. And I was also wanting to control everything. I wanted to control everything outside of myself. And I thought that the more I was in control, the more that I would be in control in myself. And I learned very deeply that that wasn't the case. And then if you shift to somebody who stands into their power, I notice now it's like everything I know is within myself. I don't look externally for that gratification or that validation on who I am and that I'm worthy of XYZ. Now I innately know that it is within me. I am worthy of it. I come at most areas of my life. I'm still human, so I still have moments where I slip up, but from a space of love and joy. And I lean into my own intuition rather than gathering information externally.
So, I have a lot of overthinkers
Ooh.
listening to this podcast, right? So, when you're talking about gathering information externally, I think sometimes we think, well, I have an information problem rather than a action problem, for example. It's
Yeah.
like I know I need to make a decision. Well, it's kind of funny when we talk about diet plans or whatever, nutrition. It's like eat more vegetables, eat less cake. This is like why are we paying people to tell us this?
Yeah.
It's very simple, but we can get really comfortable with information collecting rather than listening to ourselves, right?
Yeah. And depending on what perspective and what outlook you're looking for, you can find information to support all of it. If you're
Hmm.
looking for information to support a lower frequency thought versus a higher frequency thought, you will still find all of the supporting information for that. Whereas if you're looking at a more empowered decision or choice in your life, you're going to be able to find the information for that. So I also am an overthinker. So I have to, even now, like this is something I have to practice daily, is I have to be in my body more. That's one of the only ways that I have been able to slow my mind to bring it into the present moment and not to think about the past too much or not to think about the future too much. And I do that through my own different modalities, like even dancing or breath
Hmm.
work or yoga. But in the days that I forget that, I find myself definitely sliding back into that, like needing to get all the information to validate everything and to support. And it always comes from a lower space. Whereas when I'm filling myself up, I'm able to make those intentional decisions from a space of love and joy and like connecting to myself rather than everything outside of me.
Well, I think back to a conversation I had with a friend, and she had thought her spouse was cheating on her. He now has like 2 kids with the woman she thought, but she kept thinking, well, I'm going to drive and like see what he's doing. And I was like, I don't think that's gonna make you feel better. Like I really, but it's that information. Like I don't trust that something's off. I don't trust my intuition. I don't trust that something's happening. So let me drive to a different city and like catch him in the act and see if that makes me feel better. And I was like, look, I'm not telling you what to do, but if you think that's going to make you feel better, I don't know that it is.
No, I understand that.
And I understand her wanting to see it, but I think that's such a clear distinction and memory of, she knew something was wrong. Of course, she waited another couple of years and it got bad and bad. Now he has 2 kids with the other woman, and it was like, instead of trusting herself and the information she was collecting, she thought, well, I'll just need to collect more information. I need to see with my own eyes. I need to. And we do that all the time as women in more subtle ways than that.
Yes. That's actually a really, it's a beautiful example, because when we don't trust ourselves and when we disconnect from trusting ourselves, it shows up in all areas of our life. So this is something that I dive deeper into with my clients going forward. But I always like to bring us back to when you need to go that extra mile to get a little bit more information and not trusting yourself. It begins with little things. So I always like to ask my clients, like, where do you not trust yourself in your simple moments in your day-to-day life? Where have you broken promises to yourself before? Because that's where you're not connecting into that intuitive space in yourself where you just know. You don't really need a validation on why you know. It is what you know. And if she would have leaned into that and trusted that, that would have been a whole different experience for her. So I always encourage women to come back to themselves. Start very simple. If you say you're going to drink 3 liters of water a day, are you drinking 3 liters of water a day? For me, it's like, I often fall off of the waking up in the morning and doing my morning routine. I have 2 crazy kids running around and a dog, and there's so many things going on. And I often that's the first thing I push. But I know that when I stick to that and when I commit to that to myself and I show up for myself in that morning, that really sends like the whole trajectory of my whole entire day. So when we find ourselves in that space of gathering more information and more information, it's often like incredibly grateful to have friends who like bring us back and ask us to question ourselves, but also like going, like just pausing, taking a deep breath and seeing like, why am I overextending myself in this situation? And maybe where do I overextend myself in other areas of my life that cause distrust in myself?
Well, a lot of our listeners are in the dating process or, interested in dating at some point. And I talk about keeping promises to yourself, and they're like, oh, I want to find someone who's not going to lie to me. And I was like, awesome. Are you lying to yourself? Well, Sarah, I want to find someone who keeps promises to me. Awesome. Are you keeping promises to yourself?
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of self-integrity not to ignore red flags, not to trust that intuition, to say, no, I said if someone talked to me that way, I wasn't going to stay in that relationship anymore. And that's all kinds of keeping promises to yourself. So it's way better to start with, one of my personal things right now is 10,000 steps a day. If I say I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day, I'm going to walk 10,000 steps today, and keeping those, that's a lot easier promise, even though it may not feel easy to exercise sometimes, but that's a lot easier promise to keep than, I'm going to trust my gut and take a risk at work or take a risk in my relationship.
And I find that that's the more we practice trusting ourselves, because it is a deep practice, because for so long we've disconnected from that. We wanted to look outside of ourselves, and people pleasing is a huge one, right? When you're always people pleasing, you're always going against your own needs, wants, and what you've said and made promises to yourself. So one of the things, since a lot of your listeners are in the dating world, something that has been a beautiful learning curve for myself even is giving myself that love that I desire from another. And when I'm able to give myself all these things that I want from an external relationship, they come from a more empowered space. So if I want someone who's going to tell the truth, exactly like what you said, we have to start telling the truth to ourselves. And those conversations can be really hard.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason there's so many phrases like elephant in the room or stick your head in the sand. Sometimes we all are ignoring something. It can be, and I think that's a framework of it. And every time I even say this, I try to think like, I need to put more money into retirement. Like every time I try to like call myself on something, it's like, what am I ignoring right now? Or what am I, this, or what am I that, because if we start to get in the practice of what am I not wanting to look at?
Yeah.
What
Like
piece of my life
where can I go in myself?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you brought out the idea of the practice too. They talk about practicing medicine. It's like, sometimes we don't know everything in medicine. It's like, okay, it makes sense that you don't know everything there is to know about the human body. I can jive with that, or practicing meditation, but practicing the art of keeping your promises to yourself. I love that.
Yeah. And I find that it is a practice, because depending on how long you've been disconnected from keeping that truth with yourself, it could take something very simple. And we often, as women, want to do all the things at once, and we want to multitask. And what I have found to be most effective in creating deeper trust within myself is starting simple. What are the simplest promises that I am not keeping to myself? What things do I desire more of for myself that I could start committing to every single day?
I love it. So, which actually the podcast right before you, she talked about habits and stuff. So I'll have to make sure we broadcast podcast beside each other, because it's very, yes. And we weren't talking about stepping into your power, but she was talking about creating habits that allow you to practice and train your subconscious into a better life, so very aligned conversations today. So you used the phrase calling back your power. Can you describe a little more about that for our listeners?
Yeah. So I always, for myself and for my clients, I like to sit with them and hold space for them to think of all the experiences that they have given their power away. So if you think about all of the moments in your life where you have allowed your power to be shrunk or diminished or not seen value, and then just invite it back and give yourself compassion in that moment. You did the best you could with what you knew in that scenario. And now you are here and you're calling your power back, and you are able to take that empowered step forward, bring the lessons and the learnings with you, and forgive yourself.
And forgiving yourself is a great promise to keep to yourself.
Yeah. Also a practice.
Also a practice.
Also a practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that the journey of forgiveness has been one of the most transformative in my whole entire life.
Well, I do have a focus back on nutrition at this stage of my life. And I was talking in a summit about people pleasing, right? And I am not, people would not consider me a people pleaser at this point. I mean, I do the toxic person proof stuff, my whole, I just do not, I've done so much work in this. Like I am not coming across as a people pleaser. And then this nutrition coach was talking about like eating what other people wanted to make them feel more comfortable. And I was like, oh no, I was like, people pleasing just showed back up in my life. Like I thought I was past that. But I think it's a funny story in saying like you're always excavating things, whether it be forgiving yourself. And it's not because I'm stupid or dumb or whatever that I was wise, that I recognized it was happening and recognized there were changes that needed to be made, versus dumb for not seeing it. And I hope people can have that same grace with their act of forgiving themselves too.
Yeah, that's a very powerful, I never thought about people pleasing that way. So thank you. Eating for others. I would never have thought of that. I am guilty of that as well.
I think a lot of
Yeah.
women are. I was out with friends one time and I didn't want dessert. Like I had eaten plenty and I didn't want dessert. And, there was like the whole push, like, what? You're not going to eat dessert? Like, and I thought, what do you care what I eat? Like, I didn't say what you had to eat. Like, I don't care. But, it feels really uncomfortable as women eating what we may or may not label as bad food. I hate to use that label, but it's like there's this whole like, oh, I don't want to eat a hamburger while you're eating a salad. Like that's I don't want to eat a
Yeah.
pie while you're sipping coffee. So it's easy to fall into that people pleasing in regards to food. I certainly do it.
And I also see that in what you just shared, like comparison. Comparison comes up a lot when it comes to empowerment, when we're constantly comparing ourselves to another woman. Like what you just said, like you're going to have coffee, I'm going to have tea, you're going to have a burger, I'm going to have a salad. Excuse me. Instead of like honoring our desires. If you want to have a burger, how beautiful is that? If you're feeling a salad today, like enjoy that salad. But that comes down to like we compare ourselves to each other, and that also gives away our power, because we are all beautifully, uniquely our own person, and we come here with our own gifts and our own abilities, and we all thrive off of each other's. And that's where I love to say, like, when we come together, we celebrate each other, that's when we really rise together.
Well, and it could be people pleasing too. If I am craving a burger and, I have a friend order salad and then I change. Maybe I've been saving up all week for my calories for this burger because it's like my biggest treat at my favorite restaurant on my birthday. And then they're getting a salad, and that external validation, right? The internal conflict and the external, like, well, she knows better than me, or she's doing better than me. You can flip both ways in that conversation, right? And neither is listening to your inner voice.
Yeah, neither one is. No, there's a reason that you want that burger.
Yeah,
no, I think
awesome.
that's. Sorry.
Well, Rae-Lynn, where can people find out more about you?
Ooh, my favorite space is Instagram. I love Instagram. So I'm Rae-Lynn Danielle Wellness on Instagram. And then I can send you some links if you want to put them in the show note. I have a group for women, and it's called Women Wild at Heart. And it's a collective space where I share, I come on, I do live trainings, other offerings, go into this sacred space just for women to feel supported and seen, and to just know that they're not alone in the journey. Those would be my two favorite spaces to connect, actually.
Awesome. So if we got to broadcast your voice to the entire world for 1 minute, what would you want to say?
Take space to be with yourself and to really cultivate a deeper relationship with yourself, because when you have that relationship with yourself and you have that trust and that knowing, and you are enough, your whole entire life is amplified and you attract more of everything that you desire.
Awesome. Rae-Lynn, thank you so much for helping us today on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Thank you so much for
down
having
some
me.
wisdom.